The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
You might be used to the regular daily show with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, that airs at 10 o'clock Eastern on YouTube or wherever you stream. And it will be later on YouTube and is up there right now if you want to look at it a little bit later. But we break in for breaking news as the Tennessee football program, according to Chris Lowe and Pete Thamel of ESPN, has avoided a bowl ban but was fined more than $8 million by the NCAA Division I Committee on Infractions. So the breaking news is that the NCAA has unveiled the punishment for Tennessee in alleged payments from Jeremy Pruitt, his staff, and even his wife to prospective athletes when he was the head coach at Tennessee. Among the penalties handed down, Tennessee has been placed on 5 years probation, was given an $8 million fine, among other financial penalties, and will see a total reduction of 28 scholarships, a little more than I thought. The school was credited for its self-imposed 16 scholarship reductions over the past 2 seasons. The $8 million fine, which the NCAA said was, quote, equivalent to the financial impact the school would have faced if it missed the postseason during the 2023 and 2024 seasons, is believed to be the largest ever levied in an infractions case. It would also signal a trend towards stiffer financial fines in future infraction cases. Saying, quote, the panel encountered a challenging set of circumstances related to prescribing penalties. In this case, the panel urges the infractions process committee and the membership to clearly define its philosophy regarding penalties, which extends beyond postseason bans, and memorialize that philosophy in an updated set of penalty guidelines. Tennessee has been charged with 18 level 1 violations, the most severe in the NCAA rules structure in July 22, stemming from the tenure of former coach Jeremy Pruitt. Included among the more than 200 infractions were charges of $60,000 in impermissible benefits to both Pruitt and his wife, Casey, making cash payments to players' families. All right, Caleb Calhoun, let's get into this. And if you want to go ahead and give us your comments on the message board, then we can address what this means for Tennessee moving forward, as this is just breaking news a little after noon on a Friday. Not a surprise. That's the best time to dump bad news, as at that point, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But it won't be lost in the shuffle as Tennessee faces some scholarship reductions and this fine. But Caleb, what do you make of the penalty that Tennessee now faces? And we know that it has become public. Did Tennessee get off easy, harsh, or somewhere in between?
Leaning towards the easy, and it's about the best they could hope for. I'll say that. The scholarship reductions doesn't mean much because you're right. They were credited with 16 already. So really it's just 12 scholarships reduced, not 28 scholarships reduced. No bowl bans. There are reduced in recruiting visits, but also, again, mostly self-imposed. So they're credited for those. The $8 million fine is the one that stands out to me. And you're right, Dave. This is the future of NCAA punishment. This is what I've learned now. They're going to start punishing schools through fines, and this is where Tennessee could be a little concerned. Tennessee is playing Russian roulette with the NIL. You and I have talked about that. They are doling out the cash, man, and they're using that. And you guys can pretend that NIL and booster money and donor money and school revenue are not all basically the same. They kind of are, if you really think about it. It's just you're moving the funds around. So an $8 million fine means they're probably going to have to pull a little bit more into the university from the boosters in the next few years rather than have that money just be spent on NIL and trying to lure recruits and transfers. That's probably the biggest loss out of this by far.
If that's the biggest loss, then Tennessee's golden, because $8 million in an industry that big is not a lot of money with a budget well over $125 million at last check. So I don't think that it is significant in that used to be these fines were just kind of tacked on the end. They'd give you the scholarship productions, maybe a bowl ban. There is no bowl ban for Tennessee, but they'd give you that. And then at the end, it would say like a $250,000 fine. And you're like, well, what does that really matter? Well, I mean, $8 million is a lot more than $250,000, but does it affect how Tennessee does business? No, whatsoever. There's an emergency fund that Tennessee has had to use to pay coaches that they fired. And Tennessee was known at one time as the buyout used in all of college football. But $8 million still to me is not a significant amount of money in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure it'll be broken up. I'm sure that they can dip into the emergency fund if they need to. And things are going really well for Tennessee. If you're a smaller school with a $60 million budget, yeah, this would be a big hit. But I think you could probably make a couple of phone calls and get this taken care of if you needed to. But really, it's going to be taken care of already. And I would say that Tennessee knew this was coming. And I wonder, too, out loud, Caleb, did Tennessee perhaps leverage this a little bit, that we'd rather pay a financial penalty than lose more scholarships than a bowl ban? Because credit Tennessee for working with the NCAA and not digging their feet in the sand and saying nothing happened. So, Caleb, I'm of the opinion that Tennessee got off really light. $8 million is $8 million. But for them, it's not a lot of cash.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, that is Nico Iamaleava, but it's
That's true.
But yes, for the most part, I'm on your side, and I think Tennessee is this is a case study of how schools should handle when they get in trouble. And you're going to hear Alabama fans, because they've been complaining about this for 30 years. Tennessee gets special treatment from the NCAA. Well, that's because they're always compliant with the NCAA, even when they're not compliant and when they're breaking rules. They are the first to rat themselves out, basically. And
Caleb, this goes back to, not to interrupt you, but this goes back to about when you were born, because I'm about 13, 14 years older than you. But I remember in 85-ish, right around the mid-'80s, Sports Illustrated ran a picture of Neyland Stadium with a big crack down the middle because the NCAA was coming after them. I don't even remember, because I was only 10 years old. But Tennessee, under Doug Dickey, then complied and worked with the NCAA, and basically nothing happened. So this isn't the first time that Tennessee's been down that road. There have been other instances where they've worked with the NCAA. I mean, really, and I don't say this, I'm not overstating this. Tennessee, for the last 40 years, has laid out the plan of how to work with the NCAA and avoid massive penalties like Southern California received in the Reggie Bush thing. So this is a Doug Dickey tradition every bit as much as the Tennessee walking horse or the checkered end zones.
Yeah, and it's safe to say now the infractions were a blessing in disguise. I think Tennessee's glad these infractions happened. They didn't get much of a postseason ban. You got to fire Jeremy Pruitt 4 calls. So you get to save some money. And then you go and get Danny White and Josh Heupel. I mean, would you take that with this punishment? I would. Wouldn't you, Dave?
Yes, I would totally. If even before we knew about this, if you laid it out and said you're going to have players that are going to be paid, this is going to hang over the university, but you get perhaps a generational top coach in Josh Heupel, and I never thought that Jeremy Pruitt was going to be anywhere close to that. Yes, absolutely. If that's your choice, you take that choice. Now, what about Jeremy Pruitt? He gets a show cause penalty that, wow, it's pretty obvious that it was a 6-year. Is that correct, Caleb?
6 years. Yeah.
That's pretty unheard of. Now, I know Donnie Tyndall got a 10-year, former Tennessee basketball coach. But for the most part, these are 2 years, maybe 3 years. So they're not only telling me that Jeremy Pruitt was very in the wrong, they're also telling me that Jeremy Pruitt continued to fight this thing and drag it out and use threats via lawyers that he was going to sue the university, and they came down hard on him. So where is Jeremy Pruitt's career right now, Caleb Calhoun? Because he went to the Giants for a short time. He is a recruiter through and through. He is a talent evaluator. Those skills are fantastic in college football, but not the NFL. His career, I believe he's in the mid-40s, is very much in question right now.
Yeah, every question we may have ever had about Jeremy Pruitt's intelligence is really put on display right now because he got that show calls penalty because he was so. Let's be honest. Jeremy Pruitt. I'm sorry?
Because he was obstinate. Yeah, he fought the whole thing.
Yeah, he was vindictive and fought it. And that hurt him worse than had he just been willing to take a punishment down. And this is there have always been questions about Jeremy Pruitt and his intellect and how forward thinking he was, and this was not the smartest move he did because he hurt himself. Now, just to make a joke, his wife doesn't have a show cause. She can coach football. We know she was involved.
Go ahead and click that like button. We're going to hang with you and answer some questions. So if you have questions on the message board, we appreciate it. Hit the like button. For those of you that maybe are just seeing us because this is breaking news, please subscribe as well as we do a live show each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Also, if you're just tuning in, we've got Cooper Mays, Jacob Warren, Fred White, Josh Ward as a part of the team, and we certainly want you to be a part of that, especially headed into football season. So these questions do get lost somewhat in a news shuffle, and for those who aren't in the news business, which Caleb is and I have been as well, it gets lost in the news shuffle because of the weekend. So this is when you drop bad news. However, it does head into SEC Media Day. So in a perfect world, would this have been better to drop today so that you can answer it and put it to bed, or a week from today after SEC Media Days, in which at that point you could say you don't even have to answer questions about it? Caleb, from a PR standpoint, is this good or bad for Tennessee, the timing?
I think it's actually good. I think, honestly, if you were compliant and you did what you wanted to do and you firmly believe that you did nothing wrong, you want the chance to answer questions about it. I've always said that. I say that if you believe in what you're doing, you should be ready. You should welcome adversarial questions because it helps you make your case. I say this with politicians, by the way. They should always do interviews. If you believe in what you're fighting for, you should go onto networks that maybe disagree with you politically and talk to them. Because if you believe in your case, it's bolstered when people are adversarial to you and you have to defend yourself. And so I think Tennessee now is in that position. And I think they genuinely say we were compliant. We did what we should have done. We fired Jeremy Pruitt immediately, fired him for calls. The only thing I would ask them, and the only questionable part, and I've been saying this consistently, is why'd you let Fulmer walk away with the severance package? And that's still, maybe that's why they made, maybe that's the difference between $4 million and $8 million in a fine, or 20 and 28 scholarship reductions.
Or maybe you just pull them aside and say, hey, listen, he did a lot for the university. He's a player. I don't know. And we don't know that he was at all knowledgeable of any of this. It was under his watch. So it's not a great look, but I don't know that it really factored into the decision. Perhaps it did. Perhaps it was a little bit worse.
He was on the sideline coaching the offensive line under Pruitt during one practice. And
which
got
was an
cited for that.
NCAA violation in and of itself. Caleb, if you're a Tennessee fan today, are you worried at all about Jeremy Pruitt? He is threatened a lot. I guarantee he's going to file a lawsuit against the NCAA, against maybe even Tennessee. Are you worried about that? Because Donnie Tyndall squawked a lot too. Bruce Pearl squawked a lot too. But nothing ever substantial came out of those two issues. What do you think of this?
I wouldn't be worried, and any more than they were worried with Donnie Tyndall, because Donnie Tyndall could squawk a lot, but Tennessee wouldn't hire Rick Burns. The only one who got away with that was Bruce Pearl, because Bruce Pearl was so successful at Tennessee that it was easier for him and his legions to undercut future coaches at Tennessee basketball. What's Jeremy Pruitt going to do? Is he going to undercut Josh Heupel?
No, but but you lost me there a little bit. How did Bruce Pearl undercut coaches?
Well, not Bruce Pearl himself, but I think the support for Bruce Pearl. And I'm not saying I don't
So
think
people weren't going to like Konzo Martin no matter what because he wasn't Bruce Pearl.
Right. And I'm not going to pretend that let's not pretend that Bruce Pearl didn't lean into that a little bit and didn't maybe.
Oh, he absolutely did.
Yeah, exactly. So
show you phone records.
So exactly. So Bruce Pearl, and that's what I mean. So if Jeremy Pruitt tries that, who the heck in Tennessee is going to say, let's go hire Jeremy Pruitt back? So I think that I don't think Jeremy Pruitt's going to have much of a leg to stand on. I'll be honest, because I'm just as a human being, and I will say as a human being, I'm worried for Jeremy Pruitt personally. I mean, like, look, it's one thing to be a head coach and get fired for cause and you get your buyouts like Derek Dooley. You're fine. You'll be fine for the rest of your life. But if you're a head coach, you get fired for cause, you thought you'd be in this business for a while, now you really can't. You don't have many prospects in coaching because I don't think he's an NFL type coach. I hope he's okay. I don't, even though he shouldn't have done what he did, I don't, I just hope from a personal standpoint, he and his wife and his family are okay, obviously.
I agreed. And he didn't, it's not like he committed a crime. He broke the rules of the NCAA. It's not like he did something just completely morally wrong, although you do sign a piece of paper that says you won't violate that. So he lied, which is morally wrong, but it's not like other things that happen in our society. So yeah, I agree with that. With the Pruitt thing, I think it'll be in the news. I think he may do something. But I also, as far as a lawsuit, I also wouldn't be surprised on the flip side, Caleb, if he said, man, this can go worse for me, and I just want to be quiet. I do think he's a better than average pass rush technician, instructor. And I think he could do that at the NFL level. I actually had a conversation with him one time about pass rushing technique, and I thought he was way ahead of the curve. Before we used the term edge rusher, he was talking about edge rushers because he was like, I don't care if they have their hand down or not. Well, that was the difference between a linebacker and a defensive end 5 years ago. Now we use the term edge rusher. So I thought he was way ahead of his game, so he could probably find a home in the NFL. But I'm kind of like you. I think there are a lot of those guys. I think Chuck Smith was one of those guys, and there aren't a lot of jobs like that in there. So I don't know what happens to Jeremy Pruitt, but I think Tennessee again got off light. Anything else you want to add, Caleb? Because this is breaking news, and it's kind of we're flying here. But I think Tennessee got a pretty good end of the stick on this.
I think from a news perspective, me personally, I'm just so glad. I'm so tired of covering this, and I'm sure you are too, Dave. It was just, the speculation was crazy, but I will say that I think Tennessee can move forward. They can't be in a much better position than they are now going forward. This is big for recruiting. This is a huge recruiting month. You got some top prospects down to a couple of schools, 2 or 3 schools. You don't think this is a nice little bump for Tennessee?
Yeah. And one other note with the scholarship reductions is the way that basically is nothing. Back in the day, 26 would have been like, holy goodness, that is a lot. But nowadays, Caleb, that's not nearly as much. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, because you can run somebody and you don't get a bad reputation for it. If he can't play, you can run him. So you might have 75 scholarships, but you brought in guys that are going to have a bigger impact on your program because you've run guys out of there. This may sound crazy and out of left field, Caleb, but the NCAA is all but out the door. Basically, all they do is run the NCAA basketball tournament. Is this fine? Maybe a step in the direction to keep them in business?
A way to give themselves some money?
Yes. Is it as simple as that? Or did they say money won't affect one of the hallmark programs, which is Tennessee? Did they either say we can go money and it looks good, or did they say we could use the money, or both?
So I don't know because I don't know how NCAA fines work. Like, you know, with NFL fines, I think they go to charity. And the NCAA is a nonprofit. So they might have to do the same thing just to keep their just to stay tax free as an organization. And
well, I think the statement that comes out of this, wherever the money goes, is this. One, we're going to give you a big financial penalty so that people can say, hey, came down hard on Tennessee, but they really didn't. Two, Jeremy Pruitt was the guy that was most responsible for the issue, which is why he got a 6-year show cause. Now, other than Donnie Tyndall, I can't remember a coach getting more than a 3-year show cause. Can you?
No, I can't. And Donnie Tyndall's was crazy. I mean, it was an academic fraud scandal, but I did not know. Did you understand that one? Why it was so long? I that threw me off that he got 10 years.
No, and I still don't. But I think this needs to be said. If you're going to work for the University of Tennessee, you had better not break the rules, because they are going to break ties with you as fast as they can, and they're going to put it on you for right or wrong. Donnie Tyndall is an example. Now Jeremy Pruitt is an example. They're going to put it on you. And maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But because you brought up the Philip Fulmer issue, but maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But it's on you, and you're going to reap what you sow. It's not going to be the university, as was the case with Southern California in the Reggie Bush situation. It's not going to be that at all.
Oh, no, absolutely not at all. And Tennessee has consistently, you're right, they will throw the coaches under the bus for committing the indiscretions, which they should. Now, on a more extreme case, it's funny you say that, because years ago, not saying Jeremy Pruitt is not this person. You're right. One is crimes against humanity, one's not. But when I covered the Penn State situation 10 years ago, I always defended the board of trustees. I don't know if you know the story, Dave, but the athletic director, the athletic director and president both got indicted for perjury. The board of trustees took this step to fire Joe Paterno against everybody's wishes. They were like, he's gone. He can't even coach this Saturday. Remember, they wanted to let him finish out the year. Right. And they were like, no, he can't finish out the year. He's not coaching ever again. And that's the only reason Penn State is afloat as a college football program today, was because they took that step, quite honestly. And so, and that's an extreme case. Jeremy Pruitt did nothing like that. He is nowhere. He is a better man in his pinky than Joe Paterno was his whole life. But I will say that is the way to go, is you have to throw your coaches under the bus, as it should, because coaches run the program. This isn't the NFL where the owner runs the team. The coach is the owner, the GM, and the head coach in a college sport.
So lastly, for those tuning in, let's reset. And what are the penalties again, which is a big financial penalty, scholarship reductions, and Jeremy Pruitt got hammered, basically.
Not the good kind of hammered. Yes. Jeremy Pruitt has a 6-year show cause. Tennessee has an $8 million fine, which is the equivalent to missing the Bowls in 2023 and 2024. By the way, I don't know if that's the equivalent of missing the college football playoff in 2023 and 2024, though. But that's a different debate. But also reduced scholarships, 28 reduced scholarships, but credited for 16 self-imposed. So in reality, 12 reduced scholarships. And they have some reduced recruiting visits, but again, mostly self-imposed. So really not that much.
Wait, what did you say when you referenced the playoff? It doesn't affect their playoff standing.
No. What I'm saying is, okay, I wonder what the payout is for going to a bowl versus the payout for reaching the college football playoff, or the payout for reaching the national title game, because payouts are different. So
they got accountants that can figure that out. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, a special edition of the program. We're with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, and turn the notifications on. We'll have a little Cooper Mays coming up this weekend, and we will be live from SEC Media Days. So Tennessee, in our opinion, avoids serious penalties, and the Vols can roll on and think about football, which will be nice for all of us. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.